Ladies and gentlemen, how you all doing? This is Con Ulrich.
And this is Ringroo. Hello, hello, hello.
And folks, we are bringing you some coverage of another SD2 monthly tournament. Rank, we're on Haroshaje. Who do we have? What are they bringing to break?
On the left-hand side in blue, we have Onard playing as 28th Jaeger with a balanced income. Right-hand side in red, we have Mr. B playing as the first Poles with a Maverick income.
So, looking at this already, Jaegers, Poles, we kind of seen this matchup before, tons of infantry, but the thing I find kind of interesting, Onard's got no recon whatsoever.
Who needs to spot when you can just send your dudes in and watch him get shot?
Yeah, it ends up being kind of an expensive mistake or two. What would you think is the reason behind this?
It's a good question. I mean, we used to see it a lot with recon not really being taken, like back before recon was really bad. I mean, some players still like to play like that because it does work if you do it effectively, especially more infantry-focused decks, because frankly, your infantry do pretty good reconnaissance by themselves, and seeing how Onard is playing by spamming, well, a whole lot of Jaegers, surprisingly, I feel like he's going to be doing fine. Maybe not so much down south when this IL-2 has something to say about it. Or
Unless
not.
the IL-2 decides not to shoot at him. I think he just lost some line of sight. That was a very, very lucky LOS break.
That would have been a tremendous amount of kills there and that massive, almost company's worth of infantry here. And I really do like how Onard is going straight down south of the forest. His division definitely plays quite well in that sort of engagement with all these Jaegers and Sturmjägers. And even Flammenwerfer Jaegers with 2 bloody flamethrowers. He wants to be fighting over here, that's for sure.
Well, and the initial kind of flame war is going to start, and this is not going to go well for the Poles.
No, and Poles actually doing, I say doing decent in the town. The main thing is you have some tanks now, while Onard has his stacks a little bit more back. We're also seeing a push up north here from Mr. B with some Polish Superiors and some T-34s on efficient shot, it seems.
Yeah, I'm confused about that for half a second here, but I suppose we'll see a little bit more. I just keep watching for the IL-2, but IL-2 doesn't have any ground targets because everything else is dead.
Yeah. Very interesting opener. I mean, all the flanks are actually being played right at the start, which is something you don't see in Haroshaje. It's usually just a fight for the town. And Onard's got a 16-8, and he's the balanced player.
Yeah, but we saw some weird stuff happen over here on Tuesday as well. I don't want to get too far into it, but just suffice to say, not really the expectation that you had seen going into the match overall.
No, but I mean, Mr. B is starting to stabilize now a little bit, but he needs to try and make his northern push happen at least, or try to get the town under his control. One of those 2 options, because I feel like he's gonna have a hard time dealing with the Jaegers in the forest down south, as we're clearly seeing.
I think it's gonna be the northern push. I think the south is you throw up a blocking force and you pray.
Yeah, and it's and it's just so much forest down south that it's a lot to cover. And the Poles have decent CQC infantry, but not to the extent of 28th Jaeger. They really rely a bit more on their tanks to give fire support, and you can't do that in the forest.
Certainly true. We are seeing a couple more Superior Z, coming on in. And these guys, of course, with their rinky-dink half-jack, the M3A1s, but they're going to get caught out in the open. It doesn't matter if you engage the Stormjägers. Yes, you'll pin them down, but it just means you're telling everybody else where the heck all your troops are.
Yep, they're over here.
Shoot me!
Shoot me, come on, blow me up.
Meanwhile, to the north, though, efficient shot or not, there's a Stug and there's a Pack 38 sitting in Defilade, which is a fascinating thing. So the Defilade apparently is way too small of a Defilade. So that's fun. And it's a 14-10 now, 13-10, 11, 14-10 over here for the Poles.
Exactly what he needs. I mean, without Maverick income, you want to be bleeding the enemy in these first 20 minutes or so. I really do like seeing these balanced first Maverick matches, because it really forces the Maverick player to play aggressively, because they can't... If it's Maverick on Maverick, it's even all throughout. by this sort of matchup, if they don't do good in that first 20 minutes, they're screwed.
You know, down south, we are seeing the issue with moving your troops outside of a forest.
Oh yeah, that's he needs to stick into the trees. That's for damn sure. Once the Poles have an open line of sight on you, yeah, they can just mow you down. Holy crap!
Well, like you said, company-sized elements, man. That's what's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm. But he still has a lot of Jaegers alive. Still, he just needs to bait them into the forest and blow them up. Yeah.
He does, but there's an awful lot of infantry, and I mean the T-70s are not going to get a ton of work done, but they can at least keep this arterial going through the northern portion and the southern portion of the southern forest here, though. So
yeah, just some cheap tank fire support, and the town has been pretty even Stevens. I mean, both sides is kind of holding their retrospective half. There's a little bit more in here from Onard right now, but I don't feel like Onard has too much of a force to efficiently push. I mean, the two Stugsirs are the key players so far.
True.
But at the same time, it's usually a bit costly to push into that town. And all the way up north, it is not looking good for Onard.
Yeah. No, we did have this Panjäger taking out one of the offending T-34-76s. Unfortunately, he still is in the open trees, which means that line of sight is not his friend here. And the Stug coming the other direction. I mean, it's a very, very nice Stug. It's not going to do a whole lot, but it's a very nice Stug.
Yeah, fortunately, okay, there's a little bit of anti-tank nearby, but not a whole heap. So he should be able to ward off and kill some of these half-tracks at least.
Kind of a small victory there, I suppose. But when you're getting a 12-12 overall, I mean, that anything, you know, any port in a storm, so to speak, right?
Yeah, and honestly, Onard only just needs to keep it at a 12-12. Time is on his side if he can just buy himself time by, you know, only losing by a +1 or just keeping even Stevens. So he's doing pretty well for himself. Oh, we got an airstrike up north. Beautiful hitch.
And the Stug goes down.
Oh.
And another Stug goes in immediately.
I mean, you can't afford to lose that hill. He needs to try to keep forces on there. He's got two Sturmjägers holding the flag on the southern side at least. So at least it's something, but yeah, Mr. B is really like strolling on through up here, which is great for him. He really needs to try and keep his momentum up.
That is the case. He certainly is breaking on through to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Central position in the meantime, calmed down quite a bit, and probably because those Stugs don't want to be aggressive and push into that eastern part of the town with all those PTRDs, and I can't say that I blame them.
Yeah, and down south, you know, actually Mr. B has pushed Onard out of that forest a bit, and he's now holed up in the corner. I mean, still a good corner to hold on to, there's still a decent amount of forest room to hide in, but definitely, you know, it's a bit of a retreat compared to his previous hold-ins.
Of course it's a retreat. It's where he likes to go on the weekends. You know, it's one of those things. There's trees, there's birds. Like, it makes sense.
His Wolf Slayer. Wolf's Den.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, IL-2 coming in, and about the same thing happened to that as the Wolf's Den.
Killing the leader is a good kill. Makes the other units easier to knock out.
So you're right. It wasn't exactly the Wolf's Den. You're absolutely right. Because when that blew up, the guy didn't die. You're right. Bushtovsky down to south. Remember, there are no Polish officers. It's not that they don't believe them, but in the Polish army, everybody is equal.
Especially the Soviet Polish army.
Exactly. No one's in the pole position.
Nope. But yeah.
14-10 though, so like we're not into B just yet, and Onard is definitely been kicked onto his heels.
Yeah, he has managed to buy himself some time at least with that initial A phase like push or early A phase push, just by, you know, really throwing a wrench into Mr. B's aggressive plans.
True.
But now we're heading into B phase, and I mean Mr. B, he needs to try and pick up a +2 advantage sometime soon, so he can really start taking Onard heavily. And I feel like he'll be able to do that once he manages to clear off the tip of his forest of those protruding Germans.
I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case, though. Yes, the IL-2s are coming in. Yes, this appears he's moving here and there and hither and yon. But so long as they have a piece of that forest, they will never say die, and that's a bit of a hassle.
Or he can just go along the southern road and capture like a flag or two of a like superior PPS-8 squad. That works too.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what he's
Yeah.
doing for right now. Yes.
Yeah, and that's gonna get him 3 flags for like no bloodshed. And it's gonna definitely force Onard to try to get something down there. Which will mean that the forest is... I feel like his forest is gonna go down very quickly. Things are so clumped up, just a 1 or 2 IL-2 strikes. Rush in with his pitchy, you got all the Germans.
Well, especially if there's no officers either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, killing that leader was extremely clutch, because you can actually get surrenders now.
And we're starting to see the reduction happening here. Yes, there are people taking losses, but more than enough troops. And I think they're keeping just some other planes on kind of standby, just to kind of keep things more or less under control. Is that
God,
under
it's
IL-2s now?
not looking good for Onard now. Like 18-6, he realizes down
Yikes.
south, and he's he's bringing in a company of Jaegers.
Isn't going to be enough or in time either, though. IL-2 comes in, and this is going to absolutely obliterate. Oh,
Very
wow.
danger close.
Apparently
Oh.
not, though.
Bombs behind you to get the pins, and he's just gonna rush in and get the surrenders. Lovely 1-2 strike here from the IL-2.
Yes, indeed. I mean, crushing things overall. Yep, the Jaegers decide that maybe they should be a little more circumspect about their unloading.
Yeah. I have to say, Khan, this is probably one of the best like matches on Haroshaje we've seen in a while.
Certainly
Like,
one of the
this is-
most active.
Yeah, this is so wild seeing all the flanks actually seeing active play. Especially the southern one. No one ever pushes the southern flank. It's usually the one everyone ignores. Everything happens up north and in the center.
Which is kind of a shame, because there's such an interesting level of material to be seen over here on the overall flank. It's just that everyone kind of says, ah, yes, trees, I must stay away from those.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's not really one of those things that you can consistently get rid of, but I think you're right. Everyone gravitates to this hill play. Everyone gravitates to fighting in a town. They don't want to be thinking about, how do I push into these trees? How do I go and reduce this entire madhouse?
I think that's understandable because it is pretty daunting to push the southern flank initially because there's that big defilade of open ground where you can get sniped. But if you do what Onard did, where you just kind of rush into the enemy forest with good CQC troops, you can definitely put a havoc into, someone's flank. Oh, I've seen an off-map being brought into the center here. Maybe Onard is going to try and follow us up. He doesn't really have much to follow it up with, unfortunately. The strikes have gone down. So, he's just going to get some kills.
And this IL-2, I think, is just going to give himself a nice little cheeky kill as well. Yep, the 172 gets 1 barrage off. Probably going to see a bit of... Nope, I thought we were going to see a, blood revenge killing here. But the Focke-Wulf's going after these tanks in the north. Or not.
Oh, no. And Jack is going to chase him off.
I'm more content about watching the artillery strike here in the center as it kind of starts to come down. First strike takes out a ZIS-3. Good. That thing right there had been causing a little bit of issue in terms of just ranged support fire. And overall, I mean, decent. Not glorious, but decent. Definitely stays off imminent defeat.
270. Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad strike, but usually, as we complain time and time again, once you do an off-map artillery strike, you should follow up immediately. That's kind of the point, is to stun everything up. You shouldn't be buying off-map to kill stuff. You're either buying it to buy you time for when you need to hold an objective and everything's going to hell, or so you can just rush in and get a bunch of surrenders.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's either, if you want to kind of think about this more simply, the first one is the con defense, and the other one is more like the Rhine assault. So I mean, it's very much that idea of you either use it as a shield actively, as an area denial weapon, or, like you said, immediately seize ground. You can't do only one.
You probably played through Dark Souls Sword and Shield style, while I just use big bloody stick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a sword and board kind of guy through and through. I'm not entirely sure why you wouldn't I think all the squishy bits need to stay inside where the squishy bits are supposed to go. And you're very much kind of like squishy bits belong on outside. Hmm?
Yeah, other people's squishy bits with a big club, which is the best weapon in Dark Souls. But at any rate, I mean, the southern flank is looking pretty good here for Mr. B. He's doing his counterattack, but he's run into a little bit of issue, as I kind of mentioned before. Once you're in the open defilade, it gets a bit risky.
And I mean, you could continue to sneak troops in, which is I think what he's trying to do with all of these Desantnikis, and these Carnies actually coming in as well. You're gonna try to get them on the reverse slope before the 28th Jaeger material kind of turns around and starts to engage them there. So, I mean, decent idea. I'm not sure I really like them unloading so far out.
No, what did you do? Yeah, that was a bad play. He needed a rush. He needed a rush up in there, and just trying to get onto the hill. IL2 strike. Not bad.
Here's something interesting. Triple T-70s and Carnies being deployed to the center. Might we see a vague push going through this town?
Maybe. I feel like he needs more of a no, he might be able to make a decent push. I mean, Onard doesn't have a whole lot here. He's got one stug being brought in, but you know, he still has a lot of invested up north with those 3 stugs trying to get a foothold back into that hill. But at this point, it's pretty much a lost cause.
It is. It very much is. And I admire the fact that he's trying to push us back in here, but there's really no way and no reason for you to do that.
He can at least maybe get that one flag, just where the Strochi LKMs are retreating to, but that's really it. And Mr. B, I mean, 15-9, he's really got Onard where he needs him. If he can keep up his +2 advantage, he's going to win this game before C-Phase really bites him in the ass.
And isn't that always the question? If we have C-Phase, there's a chance.
Yes. It's a Maverick balanced duo. I mean, if it gets 25, 30 minutes in, then Mr. B is going to be suffering pretty hard. But considering how he's making a push down south here, and that should definitely tip another flag into his control, he should be pretty comfortable.
Now, Carney push to the center, it's not dead. It ain't great, but it's not dead. And again, triple T-70s. These guys are not supposed to be MBTs by any stretch of the imagination, but they are strong enough to go and give you some light infantry support. So there's potential.
And that's really the advantage of Pose. I mean, compared to 28th Jaeger, you don't really have any cheap light tanks. You only have Stugs as your direct fire infantry support, as well as some assault guns if you do decide to take him. And in this town fight, those T-70s are pretty damn good, because you can get 2.5 T-70s for every 1 Stug.
Can we acknowledge, by the way, that there has been a rough flank that's gone on over here by those Jaegers in the northern side. They've taken on one of the anti-air positions, hasn't taken on the second one.
Wow, that's a cool little push.
I'm surprised it shouldn't have worked.
No, it shouldn't, but ballsy move. I definitely like how he's hitting the enemy rear line there, that's for sure. It might be able to do a little bit of damage, but nothing substantial to actually get a good foothold back here. And down south, actually, Onard is getting all his defenses onto the tip of his hill to try and ward off Mr. B's assault. I don't think it's going to be enough. The T-34s is way too much firepower.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to kind of tap on here, is the fact that, and now we have an officer as well, so now it's even harder to kill them.
Mm-hmm.
And let's not forget, having an officer in the area also in those Carnies loses disheartened, which is not what you want to be dealing with a 20-man squad that's got himself 3 Papa Shaws, 3 DP-28s, and a PTRD. If you give them officer support, those guys are scary. But we are approaching that 20-minute mark here, so this is where things begin to drop off for the polls, and theoretically should start kicking in for Onard with basically what amounts to a full C card, of Jaegers.
Yeah, I mean, right now this northern push with the Stokes is definitely helping Onard and just trying to slow down that points bleed. I mean, if it's only an 11-minute point bleed, he definitely has a good chance of getting back into the game, but I feel like his northern push is It's actually quite funny. I mean, those two slugs are a little bit out of position, but there's not a whole lot of anti-tanks to really punish him.
No, there isn't. We are going to see ourselves... Is that another... Yep, IL-2 cluster coming in. He might pick up Deuce. I think he's got a Deuce out of this.
Come on. Oh no, he's splitting. It's kind of close to getting a Deuce.
What killed the other one? It wasn't
I think the 37.
No, it might have been the Zist 3.
No, I don't think he had... Oh, he did line of sight, yeah.
I say, had that been the case, that would have been shocking. Down to the south, the T-70s have been forming rather instrumental in helping kind of support those lines for the Carnies, as well as Niki. Of course, no officer support, which is those Carnies have dropped off in a lot of effectiveness. But we're getting more Drusina Sturmoviki kind of coming on in, or the Polish Sturmoviki, if nothing else. And it continues to be a 15-9.
Weird names.
Yes, and I realize I'm calling them the Soviet names, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, I do the same thing. We're just trying to preserve the Polish language of
not trying to abuse it too much. I mean, geez,
yeah.
my people's backgrounds have done more than enough damage, so... But yes, they're moving on in. These guys, yep, these are your scary assault troops.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter how many troops you got in exchange, many Papashas and too few guys in the meantime.
Yeah, and the town is starting to flip over into Mr. B's favor. He's got the northern end almost under control with some of his infantry, but that one Jaeger is going to be holding on to the crossroads here. And yeah, I feel like just the tank advantage for Mr. B is coming in, especially now, pretty clutch. I mean, the S-35 managing to bail out the Stug, really important kill.
Do you want to consider kicking this over to like a 20, like a ×2 at like 2215?
Sure.
Alrighty. That's not to suppose anything, and go. That's not to suppose anything, but at the same time here, folks, we are seeing that the Poles themselves, are doing quite well. And while the eco is not in the favor of the Poles, what we are seeing is the 28th Jaeger not really being able to concentrate their forces at any particular one spot. And yes, they're getting losses, they're killing things, but it's more of a partisan effort than an actual true push, if you catch my drift.
Yeah, the lack of armor and anti-tank is really starting to screw them. And seen down south, two Stugs are rushing in unsupported. They can kill like 1 or 2 T-70s, but apart from that, there's not much else they can really do. Once they get flanked by Streltsky DPs with the PTRDs, they're going to have a very bad time.
Another IL-2 strike as well, so...
Yep.
He kills the T-70. I'm not sure if that was a friendly fire incident or what. And
Holy
now
crap,
we have the March
center.
of the Jaegers.
I think I can briefly hear Erica being playing.
Yeah.
As they come down the road.
But they're splitting off all over the place. They're trying to kind of get things under control here, but it is 18-6. And I don't think they're going to get here in time.
No. 19-5, yep, that's pretty much the nail in the coffin.
Listen, those Jaegers are going to go home empty-handed today. No targets are going to get picked up. Well done over here to Mr. B playing those Poles.
Yeah.
Part of it was a partially divisional mismatch, I would argue. I'd argue that the armored vehicles disparity is too harsh to be a true, fair kind of comparison between them. I know you disagree with me on that one. I totally get it. I also think that the artillery was a rather missed opportunity as well.
So Poles are definitely like a very good division. 28th Jaeger, like the lack of light tanks and whatnot really hurts them. You have to be very on point with using air power and like infantry guns maybe to try and supplement that. But the main thing is the infantry is pretty nuts for 28th. I mean, those Jaegers, which are 20 points, have like 7 MP40s, an MG42, and a Panzerfaust. For 20 points, it's probably one of the most cost-effective infantry units in game, maybe behind Izakari. But yeah, in that match, 100% really came down mostly to the armor. I think Mr. B also did really good with his air power.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and that's kind of the way you need to play. I would argue you need to play the first Poles as well, is that you can't just depend on your ground troops. You have to truly make it a combined arms kind of approach here.
Yeah. And you got really good IL2s to exploit with the Poles. Like, they're a fun division because they're very good at knife fighting, as I've mentioned time and time again, as we've seen them played. Not great anti-tank, but against a division like 28th Jaeger, with not a whole lot of tanks, it doesn't really matter. Those T-70s are going to work fine regardless.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, no real substantial kills from the Poles, and...
There's one Stug over on the 28th Jaeger who's got picked up 2 armored fighting vehicles, and that's, a number of infantry otherwise, but nothing too crazy.
No, it's pretty even all around. Everyone's getting a fair share of fighty, shooty action.
And that's what you want to be seeing, though, too. You come here to see fighty, shooty action, and we hope that we can kind of deliver it to you, week in and week out here.
Yeah.
But with that kind of said, that is going to conclude our coverage of material for the moment. Unless, of course, you have any other thoughts to add, sir.
No, like a really good match of Haroshaje. Probably one of the best we've seen in a while.
I agree completely. So, folks, we love seeing these replays, of course. Feel free to kind of make sure if you have a nice, lovely replay of Haroshaje, feel free to pass it along. Until next time, though, I'm Con Ulrich.
I'm Mangru. Take it easy.